Hello, welcome to Gardener's World, and welcome back to Long Meadow. And in the week I've been away, the garden has definitely changed. We're now in a new season, that lovely moment as summer fades and autumn is yet to really build up. And September light can be the best of the whole year. It combines elegance and delicacy with a clarity that you don't get at any other time of year. And the crops and the harvest are entering a new phase too. The sweet corn, you can tell when they're ready to harvest because the tassels at the end darken and fall. And then when you open them out, there inside you have the lovely glowing grains of corn. And just boil them till they're ready, a bit of butter, salt and pepper. It's messy, but it's really delicious. On today's programme, wildlife champion Kate Bradbury delves into the fascinating and mysterious world of the solitary bee.
They literally fly under our radar, but they have the most amazing life cycles, and I'm completely in love with them.
Nick Bailey breathes in the heady fragrance of night-scented plants.
A particularly special thing about this plant is that the flowers are so white that they glow out of the twilight while at the same time emitting a delicious scent.
And I shall be planting some Japanese anemones and adding winter salad crops here in the vegetable garden. September is bulb planting time. And if you're buying bulbs, this is something to get on with. Now this bank has been long grass right through into August and then cut, and I want to cover this with wild daffodils. Narcissus, pseudo-narcissus. The flowers are pale yellow and exquisitely delicate. And when you see a great mass of them spilling out of a wood into the edge of a field or down a bank, nothing in springtime can be lovelier. When it comes to planting, if it's level, the best thing to do is just throw them on the ground, plant them where they land. Can't do that here because they'd roll down the hill. So I'm just going to make a hole like that and pop each bulb in. But it is important to plant twice the depth of the bulb, because otherwise they may well not flower because they're not deep enough. Wild daffodils spread by seed as much as by creating new bulbs. And of course, in order for the seed to set and become fertile, you mustn't cut off the seed heads. So it's very important when you plant them into grass not to cut the grass until at least the middle of June. Now this is one of those gardening jobs that is slow. It's going to take a little while to do, and it will take a little while before it looks at its best. So this is about investing into a hopeful and beautiful future. Now, Francis took on an allotment this year, and that's a bit of an investment because there's a lot of weeding and clearing to do before you can even begin, and then you have to set it up. And she spent much of the summer travelling around, looking for inspiration, visiting different types of allotment. But now she's returning to base camp to prepare for the coming season.
When I started out on this year's allotment adventure, the first place I visited was the beautiful allotments in Beaumaris on Anglesey. The main reason for my trip was to see how the plot holders coped with growing their produce despite being in a very exposed coastal location. And I discovered that not only did they cope, but they really thrived. What I learned from them, I'm now bringing back home to Kent.
Living by the sea allows me to make use of a good natural and free resource for the allotment, which is the seaweed. It makes a really, really good fertilizer. But what I'm doing is just working above the shoreline and taking the dry stuff that's definitely not attached to anything. Now, I have checked with the council and they're very happy for me to take as much as I like. but it's very important to be mindful about the local wildlife. So never take anything in the spring or the autumn when lots of creatures will be living in it and foraging from it. Perfect.
Seaweed is a brilliant fertiliser for my allotment, full of nutrients to help plants grow.
It's got all the main components like magnesium and potassium, but it's also got lots of trace elements like zinc and iron, which are really, really useful to all plant growth. And what I'm just going to do here is just mulch the ground with this in a kind of thin layer that will feed it. I'm not going to grow in this for the rest of the year, but next spring this ground will be nice, and the mulch will also suppress those weeds hopefully as well. There we go.
Salt can damage certain species, so give it a couple of weeks before putting seaweed directly onto any plants. Elsewhere on my plot, things aren't looking quite so rosy. It looks like my potatoes are suffering from something rather unpleasant.
My potato plants have all but disappeared over the last few weeks, and looking around at all the other plots, I think it's blight that I have. Although there are lots of different things that can affect them, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Now the foliage is really, really died back, and what I'm doing is now just harvesting as many potatoes as I can before they completely rot away. Yes, it's a relief to see these are actually all right. The potatoes themselves are completely fine, but oh look, there's a rotten one. You can see it really does affect the ones where it gets in. And because blight is a fungus, blight needs moisture to move around, so any fungus needs moisture to move around. So I think this probably came in about June time. We had a lot of dry weather, which will have weakened the potatoes, and then that rain will have allowed the fungus to set in. But what I did do was plant my tomatoes in the greenhouse because they're in the same family and they're susceptible to the same thing. So they're safe. But these ones, unfortunately, need to come up, and anything I remove that is affected will need to be burned. Look at that. Even when things go wrong, it just makes it all worthwhile to dig up something amazing like that. It's kind of like magic. I love this.
It's not all bad news, as I now have space in my beds to grow something else.
Now you might think it's a little bit late in the season to start growing new things from scratch, but in fact it's not too late. You just have to pick the things that you sow quite carefully. The soil's lovely and warm, and hopefully we'll begin to get a little bit more rain now that the autumn's beginning to be just around the corner. So what I'm doing here is just adding a little bit of compost to this now that I've dug out the potatoes, giving it a lovely fine tilth, removing any big clumps of very baked soil. And then I'm going to fill this whole bed with micro-veg.
Micro-veg, also known as microgreens, can give you a great result in a relatively short space of time.
This might look daft, but just after having forked over the soil, I'm just compressing it slightly to turn the macropores into mesopores, which gives the perfect balance of air and water in the soil.
The mesopores are the spaces between the soil itself, and doing this little dance pushes the soil particles together just the right amount to help the ground retain moisture, and that helps the seeds germinate and the plants grow at their best.
So the bed is all prepped, and now what I'm going to do is just sow the seeds in straight rows along the edges of these planks so I know exactly where they are. And these aren't actually technically microgreen vegetables. Microgreen just means that you pick them as soon as they've germinated. So these ones are all kinds of veg. I've got loads of different things. When you're growing micro-veg, you can sow a lot more densely than you normally would because they're not going to be competing with each other because they're never going to get too big, and you want to maximise your crop. So it's not a cheap way of growing veg, but it's very nutritious, and it's about all you can do at this time of year. So there we go. That's pea shoots sorted.
I've got lots of lovely seeds to sow. Things like kohlrabi, mustard, radish, and these micro red cabbage seeds, which come in a handy layer of paper for sewing in tight blocks.
But there's another big job I need to do today, and I have a friend coming along to help me with it. So I better crack on before he arrives.
It's nice to see Frances back in her allotment, having travelled the length and breadth of the country getting ideas. And we will be going back there to see who's joining her later on in the programme. And it struck me that she mentioned that it had been really dry down in her corner of Kent. Well, it hasn't been dry here in Herefordshire. In fact, we've had a particularly wet, quite cool summer. And there's been good and bad things. The good is that the flowers have been great and are still going strong. The coneflowers, the echinacea and the rudbeckia I planted a few weeks ago are really hitting their stride, and the borders are still looking fresh well into September. The downside is that we've got more fungal problems in this mild, damp summer, and the worst of it is box blight that has come back to Long Meadow with a vengeance, and it just devastates the hedges. And box is increasingly becoming a really difficult plant to sustain as the climate changes. Come on. I've got 2 trays of 2 of my favourite winter salad leaves. The first is rocket, and this is the annual rocket. It's lovely and peppery, but it is inclined to bolt and set seed if the weather gets very warm. So it's great for growing in autumn and spring, and it will overwinter if it's not too cold. And the other is Mitsuna. This is a Japanese green, also peppery, and this is a cut and come again plant, just like the rocket. So you can either take individual leaves from plants, or you can cut the whole thing and it will re-sprout. Just prepare a tilth. And then I've got a board to give me spacing, like that. Now the Mitsuna was sown about 5 weeks ago. It's a little late to sow rocket or Mitsuna now, but you can buy young plants in garden centres. The key thing is don't plant them too close together. Mitsuna is quite a big plant. It can cover an area about a foot or so wide and a foot or so high, so give it room to grow. I might have to protect them a bit if it's cold, round about -4, -5. So cloches or fleece need to be on hand. That's a double row of Mitsuna. I'll now put in a single row of rocket and then put in 2 or 3 more rows of rocket when I've cleared the squashes, which I have to say are looking pretty good. Now, the wildlife author, Kate Bradbury, has written extensively and brilliantly about her observations of wildlife in her garden and on her allotment. But she's keen to champion bees, and not perhaps the kind of bee that you and I are most familiar with.
Bees. We know they're crucial pollinators, but for me, bees are the most fascinating creatures on the planet. There's around 270 species of bee in the UK. Just one of those is the honeybee. There's 24 species of bumblebee, but the rest, around 250 species, are solitary bees. Most of us don't even know that solitary bees exist. They literally fly under our radar, but they have the most amazing life cycles, and I'm completely in love with them. Unlike honey or bumblebees, solitary bees don't live in colonies. Instead, they spend most of their lives on their own, laying eggs, pollinating plants, and making amazing nests. Around 70% nest underground, like mining bees, but many are cavity nesters, seeking out holes in trees and hollow stems. So my allotment, which is fairly wild, can be a hive of activity. These teasels flowered last summer. I left them in place for the goldfinches to take the seed in autumn, and then I left them further so that as they started to rot down and decay, they would expose their hollow stems, and any bees that happened upon them might choose to nest here. Dead branches are a favourite too, and lots of solitary bees seek out all sorts of holes in the wood. The trouble is, in our tidy world, we clear away plants in the autumn and chop down old trees, which can leave bees a little bit short of homes. But that's where bee hotels can come in. Well-maintained bee hotels are a good way to give bees a home in your garden, but it's important to know a bit about them. It's not always a case of putting one up and leaving them to it. Solitary bees are essentially looking for a warm, dry, safe space to lay their eggs, ideally free from parasites and predators. And different types of bee use different materials to make their nests. Back in spring, in my relatively new garden, one of the first things I did was to dig a pond. I popped up a bee hotel too, and within weeks solitary bees arrived. Solitary red mason bees are one of the 2 species you're likely to find in your hotel, and they build great nests. They use mud, collecting it from the side of puddles or my pond, and line their nests to protect them from pests and predators. They lay an egg on top of a little cake of pollen and nectar to feed their larvae once they hatch, and use more mud to seal up the chamber. Red masons nest around April and May, but in July, the other classic solitary bee species arrive in our gardens and hotels, leaving a distinctive telltale sign. In summer, leafcutter bees are using leaves to line their nests in this bee hotel, but I've also just seen a leafcutter bee using the petals of my chamomile to finish her nest off, which is something I've not seen before. They usually cut chunks out of soft green leaves to protect their eggs, but this leafcutter is slicing a yellow chamomile petal. She's just finishing the last wall of her nest, and when the new bees hatch next summer, they'll simply cut their way out to freedom. They make these lovely cigar-like tubes. This is one from last year, and you can just see where they've chewed their way out. This bee hotel is a shop-bought one, but it's easy to build a simple version in your own garden. The aim is to recreate what they have in the wild, but do it as closely as possible. So filling a long wooden box with tubes is a homemade version of the hollow stems. It's really important the box has a back on it and the tubes are lengthy, because a solitary bee mum will only lay female eggs right at the back of a long nest, as they're safer there. She lays males at the front. These tubes are specially designed for solitary bees. 10 to 15 centimetres are considered long enough, and having an end on the tube or a back on the box makes it even safer. These cardboard tubes are really good. They've got this internal layer which the bees nest in, and then this thicker outer protective layer which prevents parasitic wasps from getting in and laying their eggs on the bees. And then all you need to do at the end of the year is replace these, but keep this to use again. There's much debate among bee experts about using bamboo for solitary bees. As the outside is tough, it's good protection for the eggs, but be careful about cutting. Unlike the cardboard tubes, you can have these dead ends where the leaf nodes were. If you cut them really well, you can make sure they're at the end. This is good news for the bees because it provides an extra layer of protection from parasites at the back. And as bamboo can be sharp, make sure you remove any splinters around the cut edges
and check the insides.
But to keep your bees really safe, just like the cardboard, you still need to replace these every year.
Putting in different diameter tubes will suit different bees. And pack them in tight before attaching the hotel securely to a wall. That way the eggs won't tumble off the pollen. South facing at about head height is the usual advice, so they stay warm and safe from ground predators. Though my leafcutters out the front are nesting at about 1 metre.
So once you've got your bee hotel up, the main thing then to do is just keep an eye out for cobwebs forming over the bee hotel and spiders sheltering in the tunnels, because otherwise they will quickly make a meal of all your lovely bees.
My hotel goes into a cold shed in the winter to keep it safe from rain and hungry birds. And in March, I put new tubes in the hotel with the old ones on a plate under a flower pot with a little roof to stay dry.
But watching these bees hatching out in spring and flying out of the flower pot is the best thing ever.
There's lots of information online about looking after shop-bought hotels, but do make sure they're just designed for solitary bees and preferably come apart for cleaning.
And the other thing to consider is to get your neighbours involved, because the more of us that create these habitats for bees, the more bees there'll be.
I confess that I am only really beginning to appreciate how fascinating solitary bees are. Honeybees have rather taken the headlines, but solitary bees are so numerous and so important, and we are learning more and more about them all the time. Which means that if you do make a bee hotel or buy one, that's fantastic, but keep up to date with information, because we're learning more about how best to look after them, and bear in mind that it's not a one-off thing. You're going to have to maintain it, clean it, and look after it. These new borders on the mound are attracting loads of insects, mainly, I have to say, down to the ami. This is Ami visnaga, these rounded umbels of white flower, which bees, hoverflies, flies absolutely love. And they mix in with the Nicotiana alata, which smells fantastic in the evening, the Verbena bonariensis, which butterflies love. But the sunflower was not planted by me. This is a gatecrasher, an intruder. And I have to say, quite a welcome one too. So we'll leave them. And in fact, let them die back, and then the stems may well become a home for a bee or two. Still to come, we go to Dorset to visit a gardener as he prepares to enter his dahlias and giant marrow in the local show.
The marrow is the one that I really want to win, because so much love has gone into that marrow.
But first we join Nick at Cambridge University Botanic Garden as he selects his favourite plants for their evening fragrance.
What's special about this time of year is there's a whole host of plants that wait all day until the evening light before they release their magical floral scent. These are the mysterious night-scented plants. Just like us humans, every species of plant has their own circadian rhythms, which control the timings of when to flower, grow, set seed, and lose leaves, as well as give off scent. Plants even adjust their timekeeping with the seasons, which helps them to grow most efficiently and means they know when to flower during the day to attract the most amount of insects for pollination. And evening scented flowers are as appealing to us as they are to some of our most vital pollinators, moths. As the flower opens, it releases a combination of microscopic compounds and oils unique to each plant, which dissipate into the air. Moths can detect the scent from several miles away, and that's the signal they need to visit the flower. Once a flower's been pollinated, they reduce the amount of scent released, which directs insects to unpollinated flowers, and ensures they get a good meal in return. The heady scent of this Nicotiana sylvestris is much loved by night-flying moths, and it releases its scent just at the beginning of dusk to draw them in. Now, around the world, moths and butterflies have co-evolved with species like this to have especially long tongues so they can get to the good stuff at the bottom of the flower. Now, there's not a UK species of moth or butterfly that can get right into these corolla tubes, but there is a different form of Nicotiana you can grow called Allotment. Now, it's an annual and you can grow it very easily through the borders. It's perfectly good enough to bring in our moths and butterflies. So if it's good enough for them, I think the scent's good enough for us too. There are over 2,500 species of moth in the UK compared to just 59 species of butterfly. But sadly, their populations are in decline. But by planting evening-scented nectar-rich plants, which have specifically evolved to attract nocturnal insects, we can give our moths the sustenance they need. This gorgeous plant is Brugmansia, better known as angel trumpets. And for me, I think it's got the best of the night scents. It's heady and exotic, and it can fill a whole garden very easily. You can just sow a seed in February, keep it under glass, grow it on through summer, and extraordinarily it'll get to 6 foot or so by late summer and start producing these fantastic trumpet blooms. But it's part of the Solanaceae family, or the deadly nightshade family. And for that reason, it's extremely poisonous. So you need to wear gloves when you're dealing with it, keep it away from children, but make sure all of those precautions are in place and you'll have a gorgeous, deliciously night-scented plant. One of the easiest ways to get exquisite night scent into your garden is to grow a jasmine. Now, there are many forms and varieties available, but this particular one is Jasminum officinale. Now, it's self-twining, so it's very easy to grow on a trellis. You can cut it down hard each year, and it'll produce masses of new growth, and then these delicious night-scented blooms. But a particularly special thing about this plant is that the flowers are so pale and so white that they glow out of the twilight while at the same time emitting a delicious scent. Research shows that pale colours are the last to disappear at dark, which means the flowers are more visible to the moths. But they also stand out for us too. So if you scatter pale-coloured, evening-scented plants through your garden, they'll be the very last colour to disappear at dusk. Perhaps the most iconic of all the night-scented plants is this, Anithra biennis, or the evening primrose. Now, it's very easy to grow from seed and does quite well on poor soils. It will also self-seed, so you need to make sure it doesn't spread too widely in your garden. But up here is where the magic happens. So this is the remnants of last night's bloom. It will have stayed open all night and emitted that delicious lemony scent. And then tonight, this is the one that's going to open and bloom through till dawn. During the day, this little fella looked like a series of red berries, but in fact what it was all the petals closed up, and they're red on their back, so they give that effect. And then as dusk starts to fall, they slowly open and reveal this luminous white tone. Now, this is a Zelluzianskia, and it's one called Vata. It's great for growing on rock gardens, or you can grow it in pots as well. And it has a very delicate night scent, but if you want the really powerful night scent, the one to go for is Zelluzianskia capensis. It's absolutely sublime, and it can fill a whole back garden with the smallest of plants. As night falls, the evening primrose have finally popped open their beautiful flowers and are releasing scent. So by introducing night-scented plants like this to your garden, you can know that they're both good for you and good for the moths too.
course, Nick is absolutely right that if you have white flowers, they light up the evening, and especially at this time of year when our evenings are getting shorter and shorter. And they're not just good for moths either. Things like this white buddleia is just as attractive to butterflies as the blue or purple versions. And when it comes to fragrance, I still think that sweet peas are as good as anything. This has been flowering along with our other sweet peas since June and looks like it's got plenty of flowers left in it for another few weeks yet. Come on, old boy. Good boy. I want to take some cuttings, but these are not soft cuttings or semi-ripe or even hardwood. These are root cuttings. Now, root cutting essentially is just a piece of root that creates a new plant. And around this time of year is a very good time. And I've got here an acanthus. Now, this is Acanthus spinosus and takes incredibly well from cuttings. In fact, this plant was a root cutting about 6 or 7 years ago. And what you can see is you get these roots. Now, the first thing that you have to get right with root cuttings is to get them the right way up. And in fact, this is upside down. The thicker part of the root is at the top. So you need to cut them into sections about 3 inches long. And the convention is to cut the top straight across and the bottom at an angle, like that. So then cut the top straight, bottom at an angle. Now I know that that is the right way up. If I put it in upside down, no chance at all. Get a good gritty compost. So if you get a peat-free compost and just add some perlite or grit to it, and then simply push the cuttings the right way up in so that the top is just level with the surface, like that. We'll put another one there, push that in, and then cover that over with some grit. And then that can go into a cold frame or inside a greenhouse. It doesn't have to be heated if you've got it, and leave it over winter. It'll start to show growth next spring, and then each one, when they're showing fresh growth, can be potted up, grown on, planted out next spring, and you've got yourself a nice new little plant. And oriental poppies, for example, do very well like that. Now, if you have a new plant, and I'm going to plant these anemones later on, you can take cuttings before you plant them. Now, one way to do this is divide, but you can also take root cuttings. So I've got Japanese anemones that I'm going to be putting into the garden later. But if I take that out of the pot, you can see that there are roots. They're not very big, and they're certainly not big enough to cut up and place vertically into the soil. For that, you want to be thinking of sort of pencil size. But this type of root here, I can still take root cuttings from. So what I'm looking for are the thickest roots that we've got here. So I'll just cut that like that, and take that, there, and there's another nice bit there. That's good. Now, this time, I'm not going to place these vertically, but horizontally. So I don't need to worry so much about which end is which, but I'm just going to clean them off slightly. And then if I take the roots and just place them on the surface, like that. And like all cuttings, whether it comes from a stem or not, it'll be absolutely true to the parent. And like the acanthus, I will put that in a cold frame, water it, make sure it doesn't dry out completely, leave them over winter, and then start watering them again as you see new growth, and they can be potted on. Now, for most of us, if you can get a new plant from a cutting of any kind, there is a real sense of triumph. That's enough. But there are growers who want to just have the best and be seen to be the best by their peer group. And we went down to Dorset to visit Charlie McCormick and his home as he prepares to enter his prize plants at the local flower show.
The show bug for me started in New Zealand, growing up on a farm. And my grandparents were big into the showing world, and they got me into showing vegetables and flowers. This year I'm trying to just focus on a couple things, the giant vegetables and the dahlias. Dahlias for me are an exciting flower because there's such a range. You can get cactus, and then you can get giant, like dinner plate ones, and then there's the tiny pom-poms, and they come in the most outrageous, blousy, garish colours, which just make you so happy. We moved down here to Dorset. I got involved in the community and I realised there was a Maltplash show, which is basically like living in New Zealand because it's all exactly the same how it works. Sheep, horticulture, floristry, baking, preserves. I've got about 30 entries in this year. I'm going to pick as much as I can. 3 years ago, I decided I wanted to grow more flowers for some crazy reason. So I decided to dig up the lawn. This is Bradbury Pip. It's my first year of growing it, but it definitely needs a cover over it just because the purple varieties tend to fade in the sun, so they lose their true colour around the bottom. I like the colour, so I just grew it this year, and it's great for in the house, but I don't know how well it will do at the show. The last few years, I've left the dahlia tubers in here, only because we're so close to the sea that we don't get the hard frost that you do get up north. I don't really have any secrets to growing them. I just think that just keep the earwigs and slugs at bay as much as you can. I tend to go out at night with my flashlight and pick off the slugs and the snails and dispose of them that way. The best time to pick dahlias is in the morning because they are full of water. The earlier you pick them, the more water they've got in their stems. I'm just going to start grading the dahlias to see which ones are the best, which ones are bruised. At the moment, I can imagine there are a lot of people all over Dorset preparing for the Maltplash show. I'm a bit nervous about the dahlias, but I'm quite excited about other things, about my marrow. The marrow is about to be cut to go to the show. And my husband Ben hopefully is going to help me lift it. How are we going to do this, maybe? With the marrow and the pumpkin competition, it all goes on weight. It's not about beauty or anything. It's first or nothing. The marrow is the one that I really want to win because, I mean, so much love has gone into that marrow for the last 3 months. The umbrella over the marrow is to allow the marrow to grow without its skin getting hard. Because if the direct sunlight hits the marrow, it means that the skin will harden, which means that the marrow can't expand as quickly as you want it to.
Is this the one you want?
Yeah, that's perfect.
The beast is revealed. This is quite terrifying.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look at that. That is revolting. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
I'm feeling pretty mixed about how the show's going to go this year. Because I know that there's always quite stiff competition, but I'd be very happy if I got a few prizes. Showing definitely takes me out of my comfort zone. When I arrive at the show, I'm quite a sort of reserved, shy person. But once you're in there and you sort of start chatting to people, you get really revved up. 44.6. Pretty
What
good.
was it last year?
Yeah.
Good.
15 kilograms heavier than last year. Don't know how I feel about the competition. Fingers crossed about the marrow, but all will be revealed tomorrow. Judging is such a strict part of the flower and vegetable world. The judging normally takes about 3 or 4 hours, and then all the cards get written out and placed on the exhibits. When it's first open, it's like this mad rush because everyone wants to see how they've done.
And shall we give that a highly commended?
The judging is always such a tense moment because I haven't actually seen how the flowers have done yet, so I'm pretty nervous. When I came in last night, there are a high quality of dahlias, and mine are quite bruised on the back, so I'm a bit worried about that, but I think everyone's in the same boat.
Those are far too young. What a shame.
People have their own views, but when it comes down to the judge's decision, that's final. The Malpo show this year has been an amazing show for me. I'm so happy with how my dahlias have done this year. I got awarded 6 first prizes and I won the Dahlia Cup, which is given to the person who has gained most points out of all the dahlia classes. Now it's the terrifying bit. How did my marrow do? I am so excited that my marrow has won first prize because that was the one thing that I really wanted to win at this show, and all that sort of nurturing it's got for the last 3 months, and to win first is just amazing.
I love a really good village show. But one thing always puzzles me. All that giant veg, when the show's over, what happens to it? Now, these are the Japanese anemones that I took the root cuttings from earlier. It's a variety called Honorine Joubert. And I have another white group there called Whirlwind. They've got slightly more fluffy petals. And I want to pick up this rhythm of the Japanese anemones shining white out of the shade because this is quite a shady bed and it can get very dry. And Japanese anemones are brilliant plants for dry shade and to give colour from late summer right into autumn. So I'm just going to plant a group in here. They do like to have reasonably good drainage, so don't choose a boggy piece of ground. These are a lovely clear white with yellow centre, but you can get Japanese anemones in almost every shade of pink as well. So we'll plant that so it's not sunk below ground level, but okay, that will go in there. Now, I said that this is a plant that is completely happy in dry shade, but that doesn't mean to say that you don't water it in. Now, there is just one slight word of warning about Japanese anemones, which is that sometimes, not always, in their second year, it looks like they've got a problem, that they don't flower so well, they're not growing so strongly. That's not uncommon. It's just that they take time to get used to their new position. Bear with it. It's nothing that you've done, and then in the year after that, they will be absolutely rip-roaring away and completely happy for years and years. These are very long-lived plants, and they are really good doers. Now, we're returning to Frances on her allotment, where she is expecting a visitor.
My allotment's come on a long way since I first got it in January, but today there's a job that I need an extra pair of hands for. My cabbages, which are growing really well, need a little bit of protection from the pigeons and the caterpillars that find them irresistible. And it looks like my helper is just arriving. Hope it's up some hard graft. Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? Welcome.
A little bit of advice, all right? Next
Yeah.
time you take on allotment, just one that maybe's a little bit easier to find.
Did you get lost?
I got lost. I got lost.
Well, come and see it.
You've got a list, haven't you?
I've got some things that I could do with some help with, yeah? Have you got
Loads of
tools?
I have. I've got loads of tools.
Nice.
Right, here we go.
Careful of the fence. I've not put gates in yet.
I presume you've got a rabbit problem, have you?
Yes. I've got cabbages growing and they're doing all right.
Yeah.
But I'd like to have something that I can cover to protect them from the butterflies, really. So, yeah, some kind of frame.
Roughly how big do you want it, mate? 6. I like that. So
Don't tell me you're one of those people who measures the wood.
This big. It'd be brilliant. So if we, just so people might want to have a go at home, what about if we go for about 600?
Yeah, let's do that.
4 of these, and then these will be the corner posts. In general, has it been all right down here?
Yeah.
Have you met many people down here?
Yeah. Yeah, everyone's really friendly.
Really friendly. That's one of the keys, isn't it? And also, you know, this sort of, you know, the old boy or the old girl that's been doing it for years, and they've got that local knowledge.
Oh, totally.
You know, and then you can understand what to grow, what not to grow, and this is just roofing lath. So this is all treated timber.
Nice, so that will be completely good in the outdoors.
This sturdy frame might seem extreme to protect a few vegetables. But cabbage white butterflies, or more specifically, their caterpillars, will cause serious damage to plants like cabbage, cauliflowers, nasturtiums, and even turnips. And if those caterpillars get established, you'll have a brassica massacre on your hands. Now the wood is cut and drilled, we're ready to build the frame.
So find yourself a lovely flat piece of ground. Let's get those screws. Nice flat piece of ground to work on.
You can only work with what you've got, you know?
I know. So if we just square those, hold them tight to the end. There you go. So that's one.
There we go.
Put that there. Right, so.
Coming together.
Right, then the other side. So if that one comes over there. So this is the sides.
There we go.
Quite a nice, simple framework.
All our timber posts are screwed together to make a basic box frame. And we've drilled pilot holes at each end to stop the wood splitting as we screw it together.
There we go.
Super.
Then we add some diagonal crossbars to stabilise it. And finally, it's time to cover the whole thing in netting.
It's actually mosquito netting, but I figure that will keep butterflies out nice and easily.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's plastic, and I'm really trying to reduce the plastic I'm using. But this is really hard wearing, and so it should last for many, many years, especially on this lovely solid frame.
This fine mesh is ideal, as it will stop the butterflies entering and laying their eggs. And later on, it'll keep off the pigeons. But the other benefit is that little birds won't get entangled or trapped, unlike larger netting. And of course, my brassicas will still get plenty of light and airflow. We're using a staple gun to attach it, but you could use U-shaped tacks knocked in with a hammer.
Very cosy. I feel a bit like we're in. Like,
I feel like I'm at primary school suddenly.
I feel like we're in some sort of kids' programme.
Like a puppet show. This is wasted as a gardening thing.
Cut the right bits off. We put a top on. And just pull that tight along there. That's great, because not only, especially, I think this is good, because it is windy up here, isn't it?
It is very windy
And it
up
will
here.
just stop it going all over the place.
It's a little bit like wrapping presents, but it has to be very neat. There we go.
The remaining side of the frame is designed to lift up, creating a giant flap, so I can still access and harvest my vegetables.
It's looking really good, actually. Right, should we put it in place?
Yeah. Good?
Yep.
Right, you lead the way.
Cabbages
your cabbages?
are over here. I mean,
If
getting
you
it...
reverse, can you go that way at all? It's all right, I'll let you guide your end.
Okay, yes, if we get it...
Yeah?
Great.
Right, there you go. If we put a bit of weight there,
That looks amazing.
it's all right, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hey, it might seem like a lot of work, but it'll last for years.
absolutely. And it's not over-engineered because although, you know, it's quite a lot of cabbages, it gives them loads of room to grow. But for my seedlings in the spring and for sort of overwintering things, it's just perfect.
Yeah, so it'd be brilliant for frost, wouldn't it? You just put a bit of extra cover, fleecing over
Exactly.
it. Job done.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for coming and helping me.
Ah, but you know you turn up at my house with a present.
Yeah.
I've got something for you.
Have you?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Got a little surprise.
Okay. You're going to have to enlighten me as to what this gift is.
You'll love it. You'll love it.
Okay. Is this a bench?
It will be.
Put your solid under there.
If you want. Next time you choose an allotment, I'll come with you.
The bench goes in 3 stages. First, we dig some holes to support the base. The legs are made from a sleeper, cut into 3 sections. And for the seat, Adam's used some reclaimed scaffold boards, which are really cheap, but hard wearing. Then we pop it in, level it up, backfill with plenty of earth, and there you have it. Just what I need after a hard day on the allotment. A lovely spot to sit and soak it all in.
That is so good. Thank you so much for that. This is amazing.
It's all right, it's a pleasure.
But you are right about one thing, though.
Go on.
I need a kettle.
To be honest with you, I think I could do with a pint.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That'd be good.
Not waiting for your hops, though, no.
Not at this rate. No, thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for this. It's really touching that you made that. It's beautiful.
Well, that is a very high-class frame, but useful, really useful for protecting cabbages and brassica and also seedlings next year. But some things need more than just a mesh. They need extra heat and light. And of course, those have to be grown in a greenhouse. Now, certainly this year, the chilies have done much better than they ever would have done outside, and also been growing melons, and they've been really successful. When I went away, they were nowhere near ripe, and I thought it would take maybe another 2 or 3 weeks. But having come back, the whole greenhouse smells opulently of ripe melon. And then this one, which has come away from the parent plant, if I take this out, the smell of that is rich and intense. And more to the point, if I press it, it's soft, which means to me that that is ready for eating. So I think we should try it. This is a variety called Sowing. Now, I've never grown this variety before. Let's try this. Feels right. It's very good. That is a real success. I'm delighted. And I will definitely sow this again next spring. But things to do before then. Here are some jobs for this weekend. If you have a pond of any kind, now is the time to cut back and remove any decaying or fallen plant material that would otherwise rot down into the water, because this would increase fertility and the chances of more duckweed or algae. And this is a job you may need to return to on a number of occasions between now and the end of autumn. It's a good idea to take Verbena bonariensis cuttings now. Look for nice straight growth without a flowering bud, growing between the stem and a leaf. Remove most of the foliage and insert the cuttings into a very gritty compost. Water them and then keep them misted, either by spraying regularly or putting inside a propagator. They should root over the next few weeks and be ready to pot on and grow outside next spring. Unlike red currants, black currants produce their best fruit on first and second year growth. So it's a good idea to remove a third of each bush at this time of year. Cut right down at the base of the oldest shoots, leaving plenty of light and air and room for new shoots to grow. You'll often hear people refer to gardens in September as fading, elegantly, and of course they do by and large, but not the jewel garden here at the very heart of Long Meadow. In September, it reaches its richest intensity. All the cannas and the dahlias and the sunflowers and the buddleia work together to make something that is positively pulsating with rich colour. But there's one plant this year that has given me a special pleasure. Last year, somebody gave me a couple of gingers, and I popped them in a border and they grew perfectly well. And then I lifted them and kept them in the protection of the greenhouse over winter and brought them out again in spring. And instead of planting them in the border, I put one each in a large pot. And they've done very well. And it's not just that they're healthy and they're starting to flower, but they form such a good structure in a pot. They've got grandeur and presence, and they're clearly very happy. And that's how I'm going to grow them next year. It's a really good development for me. Well, that's it today. Join me back here at Long Meadow next time. Until then, bye-bye.